So, some pixels. Very briefly, Andrew circulated have a booklet which describes some of some pixels, so if that interests you, I've got some copies. Quick plug as well for a book coming out by Zondervan called Sim Church by Douglas Estes, who has been in touch with some of the people here. I've got some flyers for that if you're interested, I'll leave them here, if that's okay. So, some pixels, very quickly. If you go onto the website, you see something a bit like that. So we've got a front door which is standard HTTP sort of website. A few figures give you an idea of where things are going. The figure that we always quote would be the number of visitors per day, which is people who skip past our homepage. Perhaps more meaningful is the number of people who log in per day. And you can see that we've got a kind of gradation there of people who are logging in every day, or in some cases once an hour. People who log in once a month, everything in between. Demographics, we have more women than men, not that many teenagers, mainly people in the UK. And in terms of connection with existing church, they tend to be either people who are actually quite involved in church, or who are in conventional forms of church, or who are nowhere at all. It tends to be very much one or the other. It's an example of one of the discussion starters that we have. People send those in. We moderate the discussion subjects before they go online, and then people will post them this way. And then you can have a discussion which we have people's avatars showing up. So we've got Golfers Stew, who's writing from New Zealand. We've got Em Deasy, who's a retired Methodist minister. We've got Jules, who's a layperson very involved in the Anglican Church in the southwest. And people contribute that way. Share ideas, much as you see on forums all over the world. We also have blogs, and this is one of my blogs, just talking about my experiences last summer of civil unrest in the south of France. My family cycling around about to cause a traffic jam to complain about the lack of a school bus, as you do in the south of France. And again, that would be a sort of thing people would discuss. Some of my blogs about what I put in my suitcase, and if you were to come to my room, you'd see some of that stuff stacked up ready for the next trip. And another blog just talking about doing evangelism. So we allow blogs on a whole range of subjects. It's not all spiritual stuff, it's not all spiritual journals by any stretch of the imagination. People blog about lace making, about bicycle races, about all sorts of stuff. Some of it's very serious, some of it spiritual, some of it neither. The blogging is organised so that, into a community. So, for example, here will be a list that will show you comments across all the blogs. Blogging can be quite a sort of solitary, me and my blog kind of exercise, and we've tried in some pixels to tie the blogs together so that when people come along to see one blog, they find other blogs to make stuff work. We find that works well in the community. It also causes some friction maybe with expectations of how blogs ought to work according to some other standards. And then for more real-time experience, you log into what we currently call some pixels live, which is a Java application. Type in your login details, and you see something like this. So we have Boogie, who's leading worship from the virtual pulpit at the top. You've got responses going past, bottom left. One of the issues we had with the whole authority accountability thing was finding a way for everyone to contribute, so right now we're gagging everyone but the speaker, but also enabling people to hear what was being said from the front, because otherwise it just becomes impossible to do anything in any kind of direction. And this is the first amongst equals kind of solution we had. On the right you can see the people who are currently connected, again people from all over the world. Steve has got a halo because he's acting as a moderator, and we thought that was a really funny way of showing who were moderators, except some people didn't laugh, so we're going to have to go in the next version. And very simple PowerPoint type multimedia top right, we can show images, we can play music, and so on. Yeah, there we are. So, we do responsive stuff. I think one of the surprises for me was the way that very quickly things took on a kind of a low Anglican sort of liturgical responsive type thing, which isn't my tradition at all, but it actually works very well in an online setting because people need those kind of cues. If you have the kind of liturgy where everything's about hearing the next person's chair squeak, or that doesn't work online because you haven't got any of those cues. Having a fairly strong lead in terms of what people can do, I find works fairly well. There we go, a little Bible reading there, sermon. And then at the end we have a time of open prayer, people praying very telegraphically, as you can see, Zimbabwe, Congo violence today. Often you'll get 3 letters, which will be the initials of some person that most other people wouldn't know. So very, very short prayers going past, often at quite a high speed. We do surveys fairly regularly and ask people what they get up to. And in a given month we have, well, you can read the figures for yourself. The online thing is perhaps the most important thing, at least for committed users. People attending online services or informally. After that, there will be blogs and discussions, which we expected to be the heart of the site, coming from a Shipper Falls kind of background. We actually struggled for a long time to make work at all. I think the reason for that is that on St Pixels, people maybe put community above the discussion. So it's a choice between winning the discussion and losing a friend. People are happy to just drop the discussion, and that doesn't actually make very, very interesting online discussions. But for whatever reason, people have talked here about online, offline. Here are some statistics. Surprisingly, the people who responded last time, 4 out of 5 had attended some sort of physical meeting. 60% had emailed somebody else, which actually means divulging an email address, which is a step of sorts of, in terms of self-disclosure. People using MSN, posting stuff. I sent quite a lot of stuff by post, received it as well, so it's giving away street addresses and so on. Informal meetings, phoning other people. So certainly the St Pixels community isn't bounded uniquely by internet technology. We also asked people what they think St Pixels is, what their self-understanding is, and again, those are the sort of things that came past. I think the thing most interesting about this is that out of people not involved in this kind of project, everybody says, well, obviously it's a way to draw people back to conventional church, and that was actually by no means the most important thing for people involved in doing it, rightly or wrongly. We also asked people to actually rate how we did, particularly on identity, diversity, that kind of issue. Sorry, there's the we've got a slight computer incompatibility problem here, but St Pixels did better than offline church according to the people who responded in terms of tolerance, diversity, accessibility, making friends, trusting others. We did less well on, and getting involved a bit as well. But I was actually frankly surprised at how positive the rating on those things were. Finally, you can blame Tim for this, who you'll hear no doubt later, for this, because I did a previous survey with about 5 titles for how people describe themselves, and Tim said that's methodologically terrible. So my response to that was to give people a whole bag of titles and say, pick as many as you want. And you can see that when you do that, the biblical, Protestant, spiritual were the 3 things that people felt described their own spirituality. Evangelical and liberal about in equal numbers, and then everything else kind of sloping off, and very, very few people from non-Christian things. I also did a factor analysis, which basically is a clever statistical way of seeing how well the figures hang together based on Warren's 3-function model of church. You may have come across that, very popular in emerging church writing, where you talk about worship, community, and mission, and church being the intersection of those 3 things. So essentially what I did was ask 10 questions about each of those things, and if those were concepts that meant something to the people responding, you might expect their answers to kind of group together on mission, on worship. Basically they grouped together extremely tightly on community, fairly well on worship, and mission was just nowhere at all. Now that might just be because I didn't ask the right questions, but that does actually kind of correspond with my gut feeling, which is that St Pixels is very much about community, that we do a workmanlike job of doing worship, and that actually we're struggling to understand how mission works on the internet. Working on the future, it's always been a technologically driven project, and this is the, probably we hope soon, the new face of St Pixels, new avatars, growing arms and legs, and we hope starting to walk around and do other things as well. Thank you very much.